Welcome back to the Occult Rejects. Today we're joined by Mariana and Cristina, the hosts of Soror Mystica, a podcast that describes itself as a podcast exploring modern spirituality through the eyes of the mystic sister. Their show brings together astrology, tarot, dreams, myth, depth psychology, art, literature, and the occult in a way that feels both scholarly and intimate. On their public site, they describe the show as a series of insightful, imaginative conversations meant to help listeners explore the rich symbolism of the world around them. I truly do think, and I really do mean this, that if you really do like this show, I really do think you'll like theirs. So I highly suggest to check it out. Mariana Lewis presents herself publicly as an archetypal Taoist, psycho-spiritual educator, and sacred feminist with over a decade of scholarship in depth psychology, occult philosophy, and archetypal theory. Cristina Farella describes herself as a counseling astrologer, astrology educator, and author whose work blends astrology with mythology, art, history, and literature. Together, Soror Mystica has become a space for conversations on symbols like alchemy, the Great Mother, the collective unconscious, reversals, retrogrades, dream language, and magic itself. Now, before I introduce the rest of the panel and the guests, I do have a few announcements. On Saturday, April 25th, the Southeastern Masonic Symposium is happening at Asheville Masonic Temple at 80 Broadway Street in Asheville, North Carolina. And I will be there in person. So come down, meet me and the rest of the crew. And who will be speaking there? We got John Michael Greer. He will be speaking. He is the keynote speaker. Then we got my boy who's been on the show before, and he's coming on more, Colin Conkright from American Esoteric. He will be there as well. And my boy, Ike Baker, he's going to be speaking along with Tom Carter. So we got 4 speakers that day. If you can make it, come on down. Check me out. I'll smoke one with you. All right. Also want to remind people about the website. If you're into reading, we have tons of information and multiple contributors. And we finally got t-shirts up on the site if you're interested. And fun fact, the art is all based on the eyeball. So now let me introduce the rest of the panel and the guests. All right, Kaiva, what is going on, Kaiva? How are you? Please let everybody know who you are.
Hey, thanks for having me on. My name is Kaiva Rose, and I practice tarot and astrology, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. I do weekly astrology videos, and I post them daily as well. If you like a reading, you can contact me at 11kaivarose33.com as well. I look forward to chatting with you all.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on. And Brand, my man, Magus in the media. What is going on, sir?
What's up, Nick? Thank you for having me as always. Love the show, love the place, love everything we do here. We are the occult rejects of the rejects. We are the heretics of all sorts. Everyone head over to Magus in the Media, where we break down myth, magic, and meaning in the stories that we all love. Do the thing. I'm on X trying to take down all the craziness on both extremes, as well as my Instagram, where all the clips are put up there. We're doing it, and we're doing it together in this age of chaos. There's only one way out, and that's to become a magician, warrior, king, lover, queen, whoever you are, and let's do it together. I'm excited to be a part of this panel here today. Hello, both of you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I always love your introductions. And since we've had Mariana on before, I think we'll start with Cristina. Cristina, please, if there is anything that I left out or anything you'd like to promote, please just introduce yourself and let people know what's up.
Oh, sure. Hi, very grateful to be here with you all and happy to see my friend Mariana on the screen. Yeah, I'm an astrologer. I am actually a soon to be first-time author. I just wrote a book called Divination for Dummies, like for the Dummies series. And it is coming out April 28th. And so if anybody is curious about a kind of really good primer on all things divinatory, meaning like intros into things like tarot and astrology, but also working with pendulums, scrying, dream interpretation, the I Ching, casting charms, working with lots, all of these different topics, palmistry, everything is in there. Everything that like my teenage witchcraft self would have really enjoyed having in one book. Yeah. So that comes out, quite soon at the end of April. I also teach classes on an ongoing basis in astrology and also around the topics of myth and ritual. And my next class that's going to be starting also in late April, is called the School of Astrological Arcana. It's kind of like I call it my big class. It's like the top to bottom, everything you want to have in your toolkit if you are a budding astrologer. So that is starting really soon, April 29th. So you can find all the info about that on my website, which is CristinaFarella.com. And I think that's it for now.
That's awesome. Wow, you're a very busy woman. You got a lot going on, especially in April.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my stars in April, but something. I'm clearly having some transits. So
if you don't mind me asking, who you do publish the book with?
It's Wiley. That's the company that publishes all of those dummies books. Yeah.
Right.
So they seem to have like a cool acquisitions editor on board because they're branching out into other more occult territories. So I know that I've seen, like a kind of herbcraft book for dummies out recently by someone who I know on the internet. There's a folk witchcraft for dummies book that just came out. So I know that they're just kind of, it seems like they're, just dipping into this world. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, if you want, we'll have to get you on. If you want, we could promote this book that's coming out in the future.
That'd be great. That'd be fun.
Yeah, no, I think that is awesome. Just the amount of stuff you mentioned, I was like, wow, there's a lot in there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good for you, Cristina. That's awesome. Make it happen. All right. So you doing, Mariana? What's up with you? What's new with you since the last time you're on?
Well, my book came out, I think,
That's
in
true.
the meantime. Yes. Yeah, so that's really exciting. Tarot and the Psychology of the Soul is out. And it has good reviews coming in, which is really, really cool.
I've noticed that myself on social media. I've seen between you and Cherry that we had on, both of you, a lot of people are raving about your books.
Yeah, it's just wild. I mean, it's like, you actually read this? What are you talking about? Why would you read that?
I don't want to read my own stuff.
Yeah, it's just so strange. But that is out. And then also, like Cristina, I'm teaching a big class in April. We always do that somehow. We
we bump into each other.
We bump into each other all the time. We're like, oh, I'm doing this. Are you doing that? And then it always is overlapping.
I think it's like a spring seasonal thing with just like new energy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been such a miserable winter here on the East Coast. So I think everybody's looking for something fun to do. So I have my Archetypal Tarot School, which is like my big program that I teach coming out April 19th. So I'm in the middle of launching that and telling people about that. And so that's what's happening for me.
Awesome. Good for you. Good for you. I don't know which one of you want to answer this, but I did kind of have it in the intro and I took it out. So I thought it'd be interesting to hear it from your side. How did you two meet?
We went to grad school together. So so we were both kind of like, I don't know what to do with my life. So we went to grad school, which is what you do when you don't know what to do with your life, I guess.
Yeah, when you're having a mental breakdown because you hate everything you've decided to do, you go to grad school.
I'll just go to grad school, stress myself out even more. Right?
Yeah, and we were both studying like Western intellectual traditions and like all this kind of weird out there stuff. We actually were taking a class together called Dreaming in the Middle Ages. So we met in this class and she did a presentation on the Fool card and the tarot. And I got very jealous because she was smart and knew more about the tarot than I did, even though I was learning about the tarot. And then we got a drink at some point and we're like, oh no, actually we're friends. And so then
I didn't say oh no, I said oh wow.
Yeah, but I said oh no. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, she ended up liking you.
Yeah, it always happens. The people that I'm like, I'm not gonna like you, I end up liking you a lot. So
yeah, that's awesome though. That's what I had. You guys met in a class together.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. So I guess you both kind of also came from different. You both come from different but related disciplines, kind of tarot and astrology. But now, where do your approaches naturally overlap, and where do you think you both challenge each other?
Yeah.
I can answer that. I think, this is my version of the answer. I think that we both really, really think it's important to have an archetypal perspective in our readings. And I don't think that we're totally unique in that, but I do think that there are a lot of astrologers and tarot readers who use those tools as maybe something a little bit more of like a quick fix of insight, of information. And I think that what Mariana and I, try to do is like find the archetypal through line or archetypal thread whether you're working with the symbols of the tarot or the symbols of the natal chart. And for me as an astrologer, I really, really love and rely on the language of mythology and just mystic symbolism in general. And I bring that into my sessions. And so when Mariana and I were kind of cultivating our practices and talking about what's important and what inspires us as readers, it's like finding that story for people, or finding that symbol, or finding that, like, you know, dream memory for a client or a friend or whoever you're reading for. And, you know, I think that that's like our most obvious place of overlap, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Mariana? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we have the same perspective of like there's mystery and there's magic and there's enchantment in life that goes beyond just like, oh, this means this, and there's this list of things that mean other things, especially when we're working in these divinatory practices like astrology and tarot. And so we're always looking for the deeper thing. I think where we diverge, which is really cool, as Cristina said, has such a huge well of knowledge about mythology. And I dabble a little, but I don't know nearly as much as she does. And I have such a strong background in like Jungian psychology and depth psychology, which she also dabbles in a little bit, but just doesn't necessarily draw from that as much as I do. So she also has like a really rich background in like art history and you know, just like culture in general, whereas I tend to like pretend I'm living in the Middle Ages. don't know as much. So we have these really cool ways that we have the same like general focus, but draw from really different kind of places of interest.
I think our values are quite similar, and then we have different, like, yeah, we like go off in slightly different directions, but what's at the center of our practices is very similar.
Yeah.
Well, I also do definitely see, I think, between both of you is how you're not just on the scratch the surface, like you were saying. You take the stuff a little bit deeper, and I think look into it a little bit more, which is, I think, is huge. Which is why I suggest the show. Did any of you guys have a Kaiva or Brandon? Did any of you have any questions before I keep going?
Yeah. Do you practice psychological astrology then, or do you get more into the traditional, since your background's more in psychology? And then have you read Ariel Gutman's book then, Cristina?
The Venus Star Point book?
No, Mythic Astrology.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on my shelf right now. So yes, I have
that.
that.
That's one of my favorite books.
Yes. Wait, is that Liz Green though? Or is that Ariel Gutman? Anyway, I'm looking at Mythic Astrology over there. It doesn't matter.
Oh, good. I think it's, good question. Maybe it is Liz Green.
I think
Is
Liz
it?
Green.
It might be. Okay, yeah.
I'm not wearing my glasses. I love Ariel Gutman though. She's really cool. I love her Venus Star Point stuff. So hi, fellow astrologer.
Yeah.
I think I'm a bit eclectic. So I really love psychological and psychoanalytic perspectives because I just can't help myself. But I'm also kind of like working within a Hellenistic framework. I use whole sign house system when I read for people. I do care about planetary dignity, but like not to like a very rigid extent. I use the rules of the Hellenistic astrological world to kind of frame out my practice, and then I like jump off from there, I would say. So yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of Mercury in my chart, so I kind of cobble things together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love traditional astrology. I have Jupiter in Taurus on my MC. So it's like tradition is very much, and I'm a Leo rising. So yeah, I'm a Leo rising. So I love traditional, but the psychological is definitely beneficial for sure.
Yeah, it's great to blend both. I mean, the traditional astrology stuff just didn't really have a lot of space in it for psychological perspectives because people were trying to figure out when to like farm or like coronate a king or go to battle or whatever with those astrological techniques. So I think that we live in a really cool, rich time where we get to cross-pollinate the old traditions with these newer perspectives. And I don't know, it's kind of like a little astrological renaissance that we're kind of living in right now, I think.
It's interesting that you say that. Do you think we might be going through like another modern renaissance at this point, in a sense?
I mean, in terms of the way I would define that, or the way I would maybe qualify that, is like there's so much great research being done in the field of astrology right now. We have a really awesome group of like scholarly people doing amazing, looking back, translating texts, bringing it into the, the present moment, recovering techniques from thousands of years ago and experimenting with them. And, like the folks at the astrology podcast are kind of like in the public leading edge of that, I would say. And it feels very much like a cool time to be an astrologer. I don't know if it's a renaissance time for the world right now, but I think that it is for the occult arts a very interesting moment.
Yeah, same thing with tarot. I would say, like, tarot was born in the Renaissance essentially, and it's been around, but really only it's 21st century, end of the 20th century, that it's like boomed back into like contemporary consciousness. So we're definitely having some kind of a magical like resurgence Renaissance thing going on.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think something. I mean, especially even with the way we all connect now. Like I was even thinking about the thing that I was on this morning. I was like, all these people are able to connect when they were, so far away from each other, other countries. If you look back in the Renaissance, how many occultists just went to Germany to go like meet other occultists, talk to other people. Now we just do it on the computer.
Yeah.
So it is interesting times for sure. I think.
Yeah, especially with astrology, we have the technology to make charts, right? So our job is a lot faster. Like we can choose to hand draw charts, but it's nice to have a program that does it for you, so you can do all the technical work of, prediction and everything like that. So it's interesting.
I'm really bad at math, so I'm really happy that I don't have to hand draw my charts.
Oh yeah, definitely. I took a class on it and it was like, I could do it, but it definitely took like an hour to do a chart, which is like a long time. And then like time zones are so tricky. You have to have a special book because one county could have a time zone that is using daylight savings time in a state that doesn't use daylight saving time.
Wow.
So like it's crazy. And that's where I just like, time is such a silly thing. If we just went by the sun, our life would be so much easier. Like we wouldn't be as confused. I don't know. Just my take.
I agree. I totally agree.
Anybody have any questions before I ask another one? All right. Your show frames itself around the idea of the mystic sister. What does that phrase mean to you now beyond the title?
Yeah. The mystic sister, in Latin, Soror Mystica, is a term that was given to in like Renaissance alchemy. They would often have, like, the alchemists were male generally, pretty much. And so there was this reference to the Soror Mystica in a lot of these writings. So like the mystic sister, the helper, the assistant, basically, who was a woman who would be around. And so her role was like this as a support, but also she was like the backbone of the work. She was keeping all the notes and she was, measuring all the things and just so instrumental to the alchemist completing his work. And Jung talked a lot about this archetype of the Soror Mystica and the mystic sister and this kind of anima figure almost in his terminology for it. So when we were thinking of this podcast, I was like, well, this is kind of what we're doing. We're like being the like assistant to like people doing their own kind of inner searching and inner alchemical work and offering different perspectives and bringing up ideas and such. So I think that's kind of, we had a long list of potential names, and then we were like, yeah, that feels the best.
It was Mariana's idea, so yeah. And then like, what does it mean now beyond the show? That's our relationship, and we get to, explore all of these weird topics together. And I think also like it's created a little alembic of like growing as people together too. It's like we cast a spell on ourselves with this show, and with the title, names are spells, words are spells. And so, yeah, I think that's the other side of it, is just that like having somebody be able to reflect back to you, like the places where you're learning, the places where you are curious, the places where you need to still learn and grow, is that sort of like alchemical mystic sister relationship that I think is important. And I have 3 brothers. I don't have any sisters. So mystic sister is important to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I even remembered Soror from being in the OTO. That meant like sister. But, yeah.
Mhm.
I like the name. I think it's awesome. Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It's also cute, so it's like, look, it's
It
nice.
is. Brandon and Kaiva, do you have anything? I don't want to keep going without I'm forgetting you guys. All right. Oh, you said that the podcast kind of grew out of years of private conversations. What made you decide those conversations needed to become public?
We kept complaining so much to each other about how no one knows anything. No, I'm just kidding. No, we.
It's like us.
You know how it goes.
No, I know.
So that's like the short answer. The long answer, I think, is
I love
that
the
it just.
honesty.
I think that really, yeah, just coming from a place of wanting to share, knowing that a podcast would be a comfortable format for people. Like I think Mariana and I, coming from like, I don't know, it's like academic background and then kind of importing that maybe academic feel into our classes and maybe even into our readings accidentally. The podcast is informal, it's casual, and even though the topics are kind of deep or complicated, it's nice to just hear people talk about things like that in an informal way. So I think that was like a bid to differentiate, what we were offering people, and yeah, hopefully people like it. So
yeah. I think that's like a lot of times with this kind of material, there's so many classes out there now, like so many institutions teaching classes on myth and fairy tales and psychology and astrology, everything. And it's great to learn, but we really were just talking about these things between ourselves and as friends. And it was like, well, I feel like what I would love to listen to is just people talking about this without it being, as Christina was saying, like academic and trying to teach me. So now I know. And obviously we talk about a lot of things that we've learned. So there is a little bit of like, for people who may have not heard of the stuff that we're talking about, there's a little bit of learning there. But we want it to be a discussion, just like, well, what does this mean for us, for the world? Like when we're talking about the symbol of like the maiden, for example, this is something everybody knows about, but like, what does it really mean? What is it about? Why are there all these stories about the maiden stuck in a tower? Whenever we read about a story with a pearl, what is the pearl symbolizing? What is the point of that? And exploring, what we think about it, what we know from our studies, and just kind of feeling reconnected to these symbols and to these things that we find in the world that have always had meaning and we know have meaning, but we don't really know how to access it. So we wanted it to be casual, informal, as Cristina said, like just feel like we're talking to people.
Awesome. I love it. You kind of almost went into a little bit of the next question I had. Your work is very symbol centered sometimes. Why do symbols matter so much right now, especially in a culture that often flattens everything into literalism?
Good question. I think that's something that we talk a lot about on the podcast is the need to re-enchant life. I feel like as you said, like it's become very flattened into literalism. There's not a lot of room for exploration of depth. It's very hard to access these things now. And the most poignant way I think that we find to get into the enchanted center of life, that meaningful center of life, is through these symbols. This is like the universal thing. We're always like, I don't know how many, tarot clients will have their like, I've seen a crow like 8 times in the last 2 weeks. And it's like, what does it mean? And they need it to mean something. And they know that there's something that it's connecting them to in a bigger way. And so we can both explore what that might mean for them personally and what it's bringing up, but also what does it mean throughout time? This is a symbol that's come up over and over and over again throughout the centuries, the millennia. So there's something in that that we can find. And it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. The point is that we're getting something enchanting from it and feeling reconnected to the cosmos, to the universe, to life, to the bigger thing. I think that that's what a lot of us are starving for. And so symbols are just the easiest access point to that.
Oh, for sure. No, I really agree. I think symbols even somehow in our brain or psyche, I think even tap into stuff. Do you think like symbols, you kind of mentioned a little bit now, like ones that have been around for a long time, do you think they hold more, they gather more energy throughout the years as long as they've been being used and stuff?
Yeah. I think it connects to the idea, like Jung's idea of archetypes, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
he called symbols are different than archetypes in that symbols are like representations of things, whereas an archetype is like a whole like bundle of energy. They're very connected, but we talk about them a little differently. But when we're thinking about an archetype, Jung called them the primordial thought forms. He called them the psychic organs. Like these are the things that like motivate our experience of humanity and are at the base of it. And so when we have a symbol that connects us to an archetype in some way, or an archetype itself that exists forever, like that energy is so apparent. Like the witch, I mean, that is such an ancient archetype or symbol. It's both. And yet we're still really mystified by that one. We still keep bringing it up. They just had, what was it? The movie that came out, I think it's got nominated for Oscars or something. Weapons, right? And there's like witch stuff in that too. And it's like, whoa, why is this still so fascinating to us? Like millennia later. So I do think that the more that it stays in our collective consciousness, the more power it has. And then we also see the phenomenon of things falling out and then rising back, and then falling out and rising back, depending on whatever is in the zeitgeist, right?
You got something, Brendan?
It's interesting. What's interesting is that the zeitgeist is both something that stems from the unconscious mind, naturally and cyclically, but also is pushed by the powers that be at times. It feels like Hollywood and Western media and all the type tries to not only bring up certain symbols, which then connect to these archetypes, but they also invert these symbols as well. And so you get then that latched onto by mainstream media, and then you get these new agey grifters, it feels like, that are out there who then latch on to these terms like witch and like magician, like all these things. And so because then that leads into Carl Jung talking about these two extremes of the diagram of the pyramid, that you have your highest aspect of these archetypes and you have the two extremes on either side. And sometimes I feel like these terms are now falling into the two extremes where we should actually embrace these things but not identify with them. How do you feel about something like that?
Yeah, that's something I say all the time whenever like my students are working with the tarot, is that we're learning from these archetypes and trying to connect to them and finding the poles, right? Because as Jung said, there's always the shadow and a light. And there's these huge poles on either side of every archetype. But we're not them. Like we're not them. I think like one of the people that really kind of encapsulates how much in contemporary, I think we've always done this, but like we see this so much, is like Marilyn Monroe, right? Like she is the embodiment of an archetype, and there's like you can see the intense like beauty of that and the allure of that, and like we're gravitating to her. She's like the perfect, Venusian like symbol, and then at the same time she's the whore, right? Like she's like we're disgusted by her, and so we have this huge split, and people were so obsessed with her, and some still are, because she's embodying this archetype. She's actually like it's living through her. And did she embody that because that was already in the collective consciousness and people were already that was rising, as we're like post World War II and the sexuality of women is changing, all these things maybe? Or is it something that because she existed, all of a sudden triggered that archetype to rise and people like projected that onto her? I don't know. It's like, it's an interesting phenomenon that I don't know if there's a clear answer to, but yeah.
She has Neptune on her ascendant, so people were projecting things onto her.
There you go.
That's funny. And what's interesting with her, and when I was, I don't remember what book I was, but they brought her up actually as she ended up, I would consider her being trapped within that egregore of the archetype of that kind of Venusian woman, because she then she couldn't get a position or a role until these roles were kind of created, and then she was taken into them, and then she couldn't get out of it. And
Right.
so it's such a fascinating thing where all of a sudden she got stuck within something, but she wanted to branch out. And so her voice supposedly that's not even how she sounded, the cutesy, girly, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden she's like, no, her voice was actually deeper and lower. And she, not like it was a man or anything like that, but she ended up becoming like trapped within her own archetype. She became the exact antithesis of the thing that she wanted to be in the end. Fascinating enough.
Yeah. She got trapped in the projection.
That's exactly it. She became like the potato sack, as Jung says, of the anima archetype of disembodied masculinity or some shit like that.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting that we're mentioning her because like what you're getting at is a really huge impact took on, that role. Great. I just unfortunately wonder how much the CIA had behind it.
That's exact. I agree with that.
They're really that good at actually putting that out there. I hate to say it, not to be conspiratorial, but.
Well, no, she was a direct work of the CIA. I mean, she was, what do they call it? She was an agent for them as she was merging together the mafia and JFK's presidential thing. So, sorry, I interrupted.
You know who else was too? Julia Child.
She worked for that. She was part of the OSS. And so when they did the Sounds of Music, she was infiltrating Switzerland at that time to take on a bunch of data for them. And she's come out and just said that's what she's done. Fascinating enough. George Clooney is also one of them.
Not to get conspiratorial.
Anyway.
Fascinating.
Yeah, weird stuff.
Wow.
I do have another question, if you don't mind. I think you both. Are you guys good on that answer? You guys finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about going off on that.
No, don't apologize.
You don't sound finished, Cristina. Talk. What do you got to say?
No, I was thinking about Neptune. I was thinking about Neptune on her ascendant. So just thinking about like collective projection and also being swept up in things that are bigger than you, like the CIA. The planet Neptune is about like the collective consciousness or the collective unconscious, maybe. It is the planet that kind of breaks down structures. It symbolizes all kinds of things like merging, escapism, addiction, but also, ecstasy, poetry. It's just like it's a very literally nebulous planet that puts a fog around anything that it touches. And so in Marilyn Monroe's chart, she's just an example that I happen to use sometimes of Neptune on the ascendant. And that means that when she was born, when she was coming into this world, the planet Neptune was rising over the eastern horizon. And because it was on the eastern horizon point, it was very, very prominent in her chart. It kind of takes on this larger than life energy. And people who have Neptune on their ascendant tend to be like the vessels of projection for other people. And so if you're like not Marilyn Monroe and you're a regular person, you might deal with people just in your life projecting shit onto you that isn't yours. You might have to live up to expectations that are not fair, that other people just have because they're projecting shit onto you. But for somebody like her, she became whatever confluence of forces pushed her into the path that she became this, like the kind of, I don't know, anima extreme. And I do see that as a result of her Neptune placement and then getting swallowed up by addiction, grief, all these different kinds of things, drowning. Neptune is the god of the sea. And so, just literally being overpowered by forces bigger than yourself feels very much like what happened there. But
you nailed it with that. Damn.
That's my Marilyn 2 cents. Poor thing.
Yes, poor thing, actually. Yeah. Wow, that was really impressive. Thank you. A lot of your episodes move between scholarship and lived spirituality. How do you balance serious study with personal intuition and experience? I don't know if you want to take that first, maybe Mariana, and then we'll let Cristina.
Yeah. I think that, as we said before, like because we wanted this podcast to really feel like we're just talking to people, to each other. Like we have such strong backgrounds in our individual academic stuff that we've studied, so we're always drawing from that. But then we live the experience, or we're living how we're actually making sense of all this stuff. And so I think that was one of our intentions from the very beginning, was to say like, okay, we're going to talk about the stuff that we would talk about. We're going to like go through the brain process of what does this mean and what are we drawing from? But like, then what does it mean for us? Like, well, how do we, as I said before, like the maiden archetype, right? And like, oh, we're reclaiming this archetype, or we're reading a story about it or whatever. What does this mean for how we're experiencing our own, phase of life, or how we're, the maiden mother crone is like one of the very big things that we love to talk about, this like the triple goddess thing. What does it mean to transition from one to the other in real life today? Like, it's not just an idea and it's not just a concept. It is, we're living these archetypes, we're living these symbols. So yeah, I think that we are always thinking about what is the lived experience of this thing, and then how does that apply to our spiritual practices too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And I think like to layer onto that, the way that I see it is like, we're both naturally kind of bookwormy. And what we find when we're reading, like, or what I find when I'm reading is I'm not necessarily reading so that I can like have all the knowledge and like be the smartest person in the room, but I'm reading to like find inspiration. And when I read something, if it's a depth psychology essay or a book of ancient hymns, or, some essays on some artists that I really care about, or just myths, you're looking for new signs that you can like trace in the world around you, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you're looking for new pieces of proof that magic is real. And so I think that I use the intellectual stuff as a jumping off point for my lived magic, or my lived whatever folk witch practices, or lived creativity. And it really brings meaning to your experiences. So that crow that you see 8 times in a row is not just a random crow that is kind of creepy because it's like a crow. It's a symbol for something that puts you in direct contact with something bigger. So that feels like a very like, whatever atmospheric answer, but that's kind of how I see it. Like, that's the point of marrying the intellectual stuff with the modern spirituality stuff, which we really need. Like we've said before, the world that we live in flattens and kind of sucks the juice out of everything for the sake of profit, or collecting our data, or whatever. And it's ugly. And so it's like a little reclamation of what's actually part of the human experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great answers from both of you. It's amazing. Brandon and Kaiva, you have anything before I keep going? All right. I want to leave you guys out. This is a good question. I like this one. Do you see modern spirituality as getting deeper right now, or getting more aesthetic and diluted?
I don't know if we're going to have the same opinion. We might have the same opinion. I'm a Scorpio skeptic all the time, like first and foremost. So I have a tendency to look at everything.
You're a Scorpio yourself?
Yeah. And I tend to look at everything with like an eye roll of like, why are you doing that? So I think people do a lot of things without having true motivation behind it. They just do the thing that they're told to do, or they do the thing they see somebody else doing. And that's normal human behavior. That's not bad. It's just that I don't know if as a society we're that good yet of asking ourselves like what things have true meaning for us. So modern spirituality to me is a proof that, one of the things that Jung often talked about was the great crisis of the modern man is the loss of religion, which is essentially the loss of a connection to what's greater. Also the pathway, like the routines and the doctrines to connect us to that greater thing, which is unfortunately what probably a bigger loss in religion is, that we don't know what we're doing anymore. We don't know how to do the connection. We don't know how to get to the other side of something. So in modern spirituality says we want to reconnect to this. That's what our goal is. This is still at the base of our humanity, but a lot of it is Instagram. It's just shiny. It's just what's pretty, what is cute, what do other people say that they're doing, and sometimes you find something great.
Right? Yeah. Hearing what somebody else is doing. Oh, I got to try that now. You haven't even really learned what you were just looking at before.
Yep. Absolutely. And
And
it's
I've
a
done that
lot of,
myself, which I can
yeah.
say, which I've spotted. I've seen it myself. That, that's how I've seen it. I've done
I
it.
think we've all done it because we're looking for teachers, right? Like we're looking for people to tell us how do we access the mysteries of life? Like we're here like an 18-year-old kid saying, I want to believe in something, someone teach me, and we don't go to the priest anymore, and we don't have the gurus the same way anymore, and we don't know where to access it. So we go to the internet, or we go to like the book that someone recommended. And I understand why we do that. And I've done that myself too. Absolutely. But it's something that I'll have a lot of people come to me and say, well, like I tried using the tarot in this way, or I tried creating a spiritual practice. And in the end, I don't know, I just didn't like it. Like, yeah, because that's not your thing. Like it didn't have meaning for you. So of course you're not going to keep up with it. So we all have to find what is the actual pathway individually to access whatever greater thing we're trying to access. For me, that was very much Jungian psychology. Once I found that, I was like, oh, I know the path to understanding myself and to like finding connection to the greater stuff of life. But that's not for everybody. Like sometimes it's astrology, sometimes it's 10,000 different things, right? So yeah, I think that there is a huge vein of shallowness in modern spirituality because it's a bit performative and we don't really know what we're doing, and we don't have the patience to discover what we're doing and the humility to do that all the time. But I have hope for us. I think it proves that we're trying to do it. So that's my very cynical answer.
No, it's just really, I would even say through like kind of like materialism, and it's hard to explain. It's like just because you dress up in cosplay doesn't mean you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Right. I was going to say, people, when you see on Instagram, everybody filming their ritual, I think that is so absurd. I'm like, that is such a private, sacred space. Like, I don't even think you're cool. I think you are like, I don't trust you. You know what I mean? When I see people do that, I categorize them and I'm like, I will never, you know what I mean? Like I would anyways, because they're typically the type of people that I wouldn't watch either way. But when I see it, it's so disheartening because it's so misleading. Like so many people, right? And they become these like gurus and their sun crowns and it's like, do it for yourself. But if it's for like a theatrics, it's like it's not working. But so I totally agree.
Just capitalist spirituality at that point, and it's
just I've heard that actually going around a lot lately. That term, capitalist spirituality or materialism, spiritual materialism.
Yeah.
That's the only one saying.
And what's funny is most times those people who are doing the capitalist spirituality are like haters of capitalism. So it's such a funny inversion that happens with somebody that's ultimate LARPing, is this live action role playing rebel of this capitalism as they're trying to use capitalism to push their brand out even further. So it's fucking aggravating. I agree.
Yeah. My favorite one is the manifestors who are like, you have to let go of capitalism and materialism, but here's how you manifest $1 million a month. It's like, great. Cool.
Yeah, I'll teach you how to do that for $33 a month.
$777. Thank you very much. These are angel numbers. Get it right, Nick. That's
Oh God. Cristina, what's your thoughts?
I hate angel number pricing. I think it's messed up. My thoughts are very similar, but I will also say, like, yes, there's nothing that stresses me out more than seeing people filming their rituals and then putting them on Instagram and then getting a lot of attention for it. Like, this is occult work. It's literally supposed to be happening in secret. That's what? Like, what are we doing? So, if I think that as somebody who teaches about ritual and divination, and I teach astrological magic classes, to my students, if I ever like film something, it's not my ritual. It's like, this is the sample. This is like here's the carved candle with the astrological glyph. Here's the magic number square that you want to use for Mercury. Like, I think that that's fine. But when people are like, this is my like personal money manifestation altar, I'm just like, whoa, that's bananas. So I think that, it's really an interesting time that, like, I'm able to live as an astrologer. That's really cool. That means that there's interest in the astrological arts enough so that I can like pay bills. And that's really, really special and really amazing. At the same time, you bump into people that get really frustrated that it's not like a quick switch that you can flip to know everything. I've been studying this stuff, I don't know, probably like officially since 2008 or something like that. But I don't really care about the timeline. It's a long relationship that you have to form with these materials before you really understand them and know how the symbols speak to you. And so something that I see a lot is like people getting fed up with astrology, kind of like what Mariana was saying about people saying, oh, tarot didn't work for me. It was like too much. These things are ancient frameworks for the most part. And so they take time to learn and engage with. So is there a kind of superficializing of spirituality? Yeah, there's a superficializing of literally everything, because anything that can be commodified at this point will be commodified. And so I think that our job is to be like voices of like non-superficial spiritual perspectives and frameworks and keep speaking it, and then hoping that we reach the right people, or that we can turn the right people onto the path enough that we make a little bit of a change. So yeah. Is that less eye rolly than your answer, Mariana?
maybe just a touch. Cristina tends to be a little bit more generous, and I tend to be a little bit more cynical. So
I'm a Virgo.
We balance each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's something that Cristina and I complain about privately often, is that people want to get the answers without going on the journey, kind of a thing.
You gotta suffer. You gotta suffer,
you have
everyone.
to suffer. And so we'll often have students who will take a class of ours and then maybe retake the same class the next year or something. And then we'll still get emails that are like, I'm not really getting it. Or, can you just tell me, can you just give me more information? It's like, I've given you everything I've got. I've given it to you and given it to you. But the thing is that now you have to take that and do something with it, do your own exploring with it, follow your own pathways with it. And then it'll make sense, or maybe you'll find that it's not really worth it for you or whatever. But we complain about that a lot with each other, where we're like, this person just really wants something from me that I'm trying to give, but they don't know how to really get it.
Yeah.
And that's where like the intuitive part as well. Like I always think it's interesting how like you can read every astrology book, but you have to know how to weave the things together. And it sounds like that's probably what that person's struggling with, is the weaving part. Because that's something that you have to innately have in yourself. And that's why, if you can do astrology, it's going to be in your chart that you can do astrology. That's just what all the ancients said. You know what I mean? So if you're meant to do astrology, it'll be written in your chart. If you're meant to be an actor, it'll be written in your chart. And that's where, sometimes people just have to say, that's just not my path. And that's where sometimes, being that it's such a pop thing right now, it's kind of unfortunate, because it confuses people to think well, I should be able to do that too. This person's doing it. And so just being right. Well, it's not my thing. I am, and then career or whatever it is even a big thing for them either way. So it is interesting how that works out.
Yeah. I think, when I was learning astrology a million years ago, it was before this big internet boom of people talking about astrology online. So you could haunt some weird message board, on the internet and read other people's wacky conversations about asteroids, or, you could get the books and you could really immerse yourself in that. But still, astrology books do not ever do the thing of giving you the sense of intuitive sight to synthesize. And that's what people always complain about. They're like, I know what the planets mean, I know what the signs mean, the houses, blah, 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 but I can't bring it all together. And so I try to teach that in my classes. And I do think that it is a little bit of you need to kind of be an intuitive person to see similarity, to see symbolic meaning in things. And that doesn't mean that if you don't have that gift, you can't, read your chart or use astrology. But sometimes people, push really hard on commodifying it, or, I want to do this for a side gig. And that's where it breaks down. That's where the daemon's nope, actually, no, it's not going to happen. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I appreciate the answers. That was great. I thought it was a good question too.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I also want to add in the idea that I find with my students, because I teach martial arts during the daytime, and it's such a fascinating thing that how I learned and how the the Chinese teachers I've had, even my non-Chinese teachers who learned from the Chinese teachers, it's when you're learning forms or doing certain things, I feel like nowadays people want their, like you're saying, their hands held throughout the whole practice. And instead of, I remember when I was getting taught, my teacher, and then when we would go train with the Chinese guys, they would be like, here's what it looks like. And then they would sit down and then they would like do this and drink their tea. And then you would just do it. And then you'd look at them like, am I doing it right? And like the thing that I always tell my students, and I've probably said this a billion times, but they just look at you and they go, do you have power? And then you're like, no. They're all like, keep doing it. Do more until you have power. And what they mean is, do you have foundation? Do you have grounding? Do you have the ability to continue? And so it's like one of those things where they're all like, people have become weak because they want their hand held through the whole process. And I think that is an issue of the globalized world of instant access.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating, because then it goes to the stories of when you would want to go learn these Chinese arts or these ancient arts, mystical arts. The story is you would have to sit in front of the temple for weeks on end. And then, people would not be able to do it, obviously, and they would walk away. And then the abbot would come out and he'd put a bowl full of rice in the middle of all of them. And then 5 people would go up there and they would eat from the rice. The abbot would come and point them away. You must, you cannot. You must be disciplined before you enter into the Western or the Eastern mystical teachings. And I think, again, that just goes back to proving what you guys are saying, everyone here, as well as that. It's like everyone wants their hand held through the process. Yeah. They're not willing to suffer. And that is what has to happen.
Yeah. In the tarot, the card for that kind of is the Hierophant. Because the Hierophant is like the priest, he's like the Pope, and he disseminates the knowledge, right? Yeah. But then at that point, you take it and you have to find your own way to living it or experiencing it. And this is something that you're totally right. There's this, we don't realize that throughout history, you always have to be initiated into the thing. And the initiation process is a process of self-discovery and challenge and testing and all of these things. And so now we just buy a class, which is great. I love that I can buy classes that interest me and learn something, and I can teach this. But we don't always understand that the initiation cannot be removed from the process. You also have to go through the journey and the confusion and the testing and the finding. The other thing, like when I started with Jungian psychology, I say this all the time, like in my classes, I found a book in my grandpa's attic. And I was like, this is interesting. I've heard of this Jung guy. Let me just read this. And then I was like, oh crap, like my life just changed. I think I have to keep reading about Jung and what Jung said. And then I just read whatever book I found in his attic. It wasn't like someone told me these are the books you have to read. I didn't have like a Google cheat sheet of like, this is how you learn Jungian psychology. I just kept reading and I just kept discovering. And then that, led me to other things and the tarot and all this stuff. And so what I teach now is compiled from a decade of my own like initiation process through all of this work. So it's not something someone ever told me. And it's really cool that we get told these things now. We can learn them from people, especially all this occult material and spiritual material, but we can't remove the initiation process. We still have to do that process. And so we, as teachers, we can never get, help the students through that. We can never eliminate that part of it, nor should we. Then they're not really absorbing it.
It's really interesting that you said like all your experience too. I think that's awesome. I would even say, I think for myself, probably going back to, a little bit around 2010, around there, I feel like there was kind of like a little bit of a big boom of people getting interested in witchcraft again and the occult, yeah. But it just seemed to be everywhere and scattered, and myself included. I was part of that. And now since that time, I've been able to kind of like, put my experience into something. Like I've learned from it now. I'm trying to like, it's hard to explain what I'm getting at, but what you said just reminded me of that, of kind of like, refining my experience and being able to share it with others now, since it's been like 15 years since then, I think that does help,
Yeah.
And I do think that people like us that stuck with it and found something that we loved and we're doing, not trying to sound cocky, but I do think, all of us here have a chance of kind of being part of like the new voice or aeon going forward. Because a lot of the people that have been around that we learned from, they're kind of stepping back. They're getting old. You know, it's.
Yeah.
I think if we keep going and keep doing what we're doing, we could definitely make an impact and help, especially with our past experiences. So I love that you said that.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and I think it's actually the most important thing, especially because we live in an age of grifters. And so it's like this high level of charlatanism is so aggravating that I feel like what was said earlier is like, I wanted to create Magus in the Media for years, and life just didn't allow me to for one reason or another. Maybe I wasn't ready, whatnot, and so forth. But it's like so fascinating how quickly the universe, once you allow the pathways to open themselves up, that all of a sudden now I'm talking to some of the people that I've always wanted to communicate with, and it has only taken so much amount of time. And so it's like, I think the universe, it's almost like, I like to think of it as the analogy of like the white blood cells in our body's system, where like certain things are created like diseases in the body. And I'm not saying grifters are diseases, maybe I am, but it's one of those things that it's like fascinating to think that then the universe creates its way to balance out the spectrum. It's very symbolic to how the Force is used in Star Wars. And so the Force balances itself. It's not that the light will always win or the dark will always win, but when the light is created, like an Anakin Skywalker, there are two Sith to balance that. And I like that because it's a symbolic for understanding that there will always be balance. That is, the light will never win because it's not supposed to. The light and the dark are supposed to balance themselves out. So if true, authentic voices, hopefully like all of us here, aren't speaking out, then there will be an imbalance and the world will go to shit, kind of like it has been, because of the voices that are the loudest are the ones that are the least courageous. So it's kind of how I like to feel. I feel that out.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
definitely.
did have, I know it's getting close to that hour mark. I did have some questions for both of you separately. Let's see if maybe I can get like one each. First,
You don't have to rush.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just didn't want to hold you up either if you got stuff going on.
It's all good.
All right. Just questions. They gave very good answers. I didn't think they were going to take this one. But we're going to start with you first, Mariana. You describe your work as archetypal tarot. What makes it different? What makes that different from standard tarot teaching or standard card reading?
Yeah. So in traditional tarot, we're generally using the cards to give us answers, right? Sometimes to make predictions, like, oh, this is what's to come, or this is what's going on under the surface of things. You know, your boyfriend's cheating on you, these kinds of things. And in archetypal tarot, it's not that we say that the cards can never come up, sometimes offering these little predictions or these little glimpses into what's going on, but we read them far more as representations of the psyche, mirrors of the psyche. So what's going on in our inner world that is then reflecting somehow into the outer world. So something I always say is that in an archetypal tarot reading, the goal is not to get an answer to a question, but to find out what the better question was all along. So if we say, okay, like, I don't know if I should take this job or not. Should I take the job? We're going to the cards. We're saying, give me the answer. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. What's the right thing? And that can feel very relieving to get an answer, but we're not supporting our strength of character. We're not supporting our ability to understand ourselves and continue our individuation. We're just being given a directive. When we use the tarot in the archetypal way, and the archetypal approach that I've created or outlined, we're trying to understand, why don't I know what I want, right? That's the better question. Better question is like, okay, I don't know if I should take this job, but then the cards will reveal, you have deep fears around being alone, or you can't separate from your parents, or there's something going on under the surface that is the reason why you can't make the decision. That's the better question. Why don't I know? Why don't I know how to live? And so if we use the cards that way, they support this incredible journey of growth and how we're understanding ourselves and advancing ourselves in life, which is a more challenging way to read because we're not just being told what to do. We have to figure it out for ourselves, but a much, much more rewarding way. So that's really the distinction of like archetypal tarot versus traditional.
Thank you. I like that. I was going to say something. I totally forgot. I was paying attention. All right. Did any of you have anything you wanted to add before I go over Cristina?
Well, I just want to add that everyone can learn about archetypal tarot in Mariana's book,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
And
That
if,
is what my book is about.
and if you want to hear what it's about, go check it out on the Occult Rejects. It was out not too long
Yep.
ago. Yep. Just did a great job on that book.
Yeah.
Cristina, your public bio says you blend astrology with mythology, art history, and literature. What does this add to astrology that a more technical approach might miss?
I think that the symbols of astrology, the symbols of the occult, are in everything. And so when I, like, I don't know, in college, when I was studying, I was a literature major, art history minor. And I felt, and I was studying astrology at the same time, I felt like I kept bumping into the same symbols, the same archetypes, the same, versions of a story. And I realized that, like, you could kind of translate human experience with these symbols. Like, I saw a link between what was maybe expressed in a movie and also an astrological symbol. And so I think it's almost like it's just like a human impulse, right, to like connect these things. But it's my way of bringing together all of these cultural artifacts and say, here are different ways of seeing self. You can see yourself in a movie. You can see yourself in your natal chart. You can see yourself in, a painting from 100 years ago. And importing the symbols of astrology into the arts and vice versa lets us kind of have a more expansive experience. And it's a reminder that things are interconnected, right? Someone's not just painting an abstract painting for the sake of making that painting. That artist is moved by something probably divine or archetypal or just human. And it's a really cool experience to feel like you have insight into what's going on there. Somebody who comes to mind is Hilma af Klint, who's a painter. She preceded the abstract expressionist movement. She preceded Vasily Kandinsky. And, because she was a woman, didn't get any credit for doing that. She was kind of obscure in her time. Looking at her paintings now, they are full-blown mystical experiences rendered on canvas, and they're full of astrological symbolism. And so, bringing the arts into astrology and vice versa, I think is just a way of saying, like, there is a universal language that people speak in. And I just personally fucking love art and movies and music. And I like to have other ways of offering people insight and examples, so of stuff in their chart that might make it easier to see themselves. So yeah, I think that's how that all kind of works together.
Do you like Remedios Varos or Leonora Carrington?
Yes.
He's obsessed with her.
I read that way,
Me
don't
too.
I? Yes. Yeah.
I love both of those too. Yeah, they're great. I want to go to
They're
Mexico.
amazing.
Or actually in Washington, apparently they have a women's art museum.
Washington
Yes,
State or Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, Washington, D.C. Apparently there's a women's art museum there, and both of them are showed there. Mm-hmm. So I heard. Cool. I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're amazing. Both of those artists, they were best friends, just for everyone else. They were besties. Yep. And they both expatriated to Mexico during World War II. And just like both of them lived, I would say, like dire straits poverty, but were painting kind of similar things, but in different languages, maybe I could say. But they're both very obsessed with fairy tale mythology, the occult, tarot, astrology, alchemy. Yes, they're so big into alchemy. And yeah, excitingly too, there's like a revived interest in their work, and a lot of the women surrealists too. There's a lot of new scholarship on their work. So nice. We're lucky again about that. Yeah, I love those ladies.
Yeah.
I like what you said about art, and I think at some point, it's just my opinion, and I even think with poetry, and maybe I get this idea because a little bit of like how Plato thought about stuff, but sometimes I do think that that stuff was like art was just a way for people who had some sort of experience or enlightenment was putting that on just trying to replicate it and put symbolism and all this art into that. Which is why at one point Plato was like, all these poetry people should just like should be yeah, because it's bullshit. You don't even know what you're talking about.
How can you have a standing army when people are doing poetry? So yeah.
Well, besides
well, what's fascinating.
There you go.
No, I was just saying what's fascinating about when he's talking about that, and I think this is a common misconception, and I'm a Platonist myself and a philosopher, but the idea is that he's trying to not tell you that that poetry is bad. He's trying to tell you that poetry is actually one of the highest of all arts. It's this divine madness. And when he's speaking about poetry as such, he's saying that through bad poetry, you are getting this kind of propaganda, this misrepresentation of an already a representation of the real. And so fascinating enough, art is the term techne, or skill or craft in Greek, which is a purposeful knowledge-based productive capacity for things as such, which is modeled after virtue. So it's such an interesting thing of like, Plato was a poet. He wrote in dialogues. It's a cosmic play that he's doing, and we never know technically what he's saying, but we can gain what he's saying through through hermeneutics, through an understanding of what translations are and what he truly is trying to represent through said poetry. So he's trying to teach us how to be poets through using the divine madness of the higher genius and an understanding of the forms. And so I'm very passionate about that. So that's one of those.
Yeah, thank you. You basically said what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, Nick.
No, it sounded better out of your mouth than mine. But another thing, even with art, I think it's very like, I don't know if it was Michael Mayer or Robert Flood. I think like even one of the reasons why they were big into their emblems is because they understood that art can, you may not know how to read Latin, but this art, if I put everything what I'm trying to say in these emblems, you might be able to pick it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
I do think art is very, like what you were saying, I just think it's a huge.
Yeah, emblem art is so beautiful too. I love it.
Engravings.
So, it's great.
I've covered books just because I thought they were so awesome. All right, now back to, if you don't mind real quick, we'll go back to another one for Mariana, and then we'll do Cristina, and maybe wrap it up. Mariana, you say tarot can function as a mirror of the soul and support individuation. What does tarot open up psychologically and spiritually when it's approached that way?
I think that so as I was kind of saying before, like if we can use the cards to mirror back the inner realities that oftentimes are also expressed as outer realities. Like very commonly we pull the 5 of Wands when we're in conflicts with people at work, and then also we are having a lot of conflict with our own sense of right and wrong or something, right? Like these things mirror each other. If we can do that, then we can progress in this process of self-examination and self-discovery, and challenging our ability to really understand what is motivating us unconsciously. And then that is the process of individuation. That's what it is. So like one of the things that I often recommend people try with the tarot, and I talk about this a lot in my book, is shadow work, right? And we mentioned this in the last podcast. I'm not always a fan of shadow work because I don't know if we really have an understanding of what we're even talking about with it. But in the way that I talk about it with the tarot is that, we pull a card, it's confusing or it's challenging or we feel a lot of resistance to it. Here's an opportunity to really examine it, work with it, keep it, put it on the altar, make it be this anchor point that we're returning to all the time so that we eventually get to the place of, I see something about myself I didn't see before. The ego, which had blocked this understanding because it didn't like it, because it brought up some kind of big, shadow element that I can't reconcile with, whatever might be the case. Now it's becoming clear. And now maybe I can have some kind of understanding, empathy, forgiveness for myself, and then change, which is, I like the way that Jung kind of took the formula of alchemy and broke it down into those 4 stages. He way simplified it into the Negredo, Albedo, Citrinitas, and Rubedo. And this was his formula for confession, elucidation, education, and then transformation, And so I use that a lot when I'm talking about shadow work. This is what we're doing. We're confessing our shadow. Then we're elucidating it. We're trying to understand it, and we're educating ourselves on it, trying to find the root cause, find out, how it's affecting our lives, and then transform it. And the tarot it's a plug. It plugs us into one of the things that Marie-Louise von Franz, the Jungian, says is that we're using divination. What we're doing is using this tool to plug us into this archetypal field. And so whatever archetype is most magnetized, is most constellated, that's what we're going to be drawn to. So whatever's going on in our psyche, whatever archetype is there, the card will come to represent it. And then we get plugged into this greater landscape of knowledge that we should explore. So that's kind of like the formula of how we use it to support ourselves in the individuation process.
Awesome. I love it. Nice. Kyra, Brandon, you have anything? No? All right. Back to you, Cristina. How do you keep astrology from becoming deterministic while honoring its depth and symbolic force?
I try not to get... it's very difficult, especially when you're first learning, because when you're learning astrology, you will notice that some forecasted transits to your own chart do bring difficult experiences. Bad things happen when certain planetary alignments come to be. And what you have to not do is expect the planets to always be doing the same thing over and over again to you. I think that this is kind of where we have to have like knowledge that transcends these literal interpretations of astrology. And remember that the planets in motion, right? Just thinking about like transit work, which is like the astrology of what's going to happen, the astrology of the future. I guess you could look back on transits too, but people mostly use it to future trip. And you can't do that because though the planets kind of go in their courses and they activate our charts and they activate one another in the cosmos, they're not going in a circle and doing the same thing over and over again. They're moving in a spiral. And so they're always kind of like pulling outwards, interacting with the zeitgeist of the moment, interacting with you as this different person than you were 6 months ago when you experience, from like one eclipse to another, for example. And so one of the hardest things I think about being an astrologer and a budding astrologer is to not feel anxiety, fear, worry, or like pressure with astrology. And so I think that we have to see the planets as activating periods of time that are like doorways. And we kind of can step into them with knowledge, or we can maybe use that knowledge to, work with them in a different way. I think that astrology doesn't have to happen to us. I think that if we like move with the wave, like when you're swimming in the ocean and you're trying to get back to the beach, you don't just like flail. You have to wait for a wave to carry you in. And that's kind of how I see the planets and what they do for us. So, without it being deterministic or avoiding determinism is very difficult. But that's why we need to shift our thinking about astrology from like literalism to it's symbolic, it's energetic, and it's divine as well. We're in conversation with something that's divine, a divine intelligence. So yeah, that feels it's a very tough question, I think, to answer.
I think you did great. Thank you. That was awesome. Yeah. I do have like maybe some closing questions. Maybe I get one or two more out of you, and then we'll wrap it up. Is that okay for both of us?
You good, Mariana?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What's I know it's funny how I had this, and even Mariana kind of went on about the symbols. What is one symbol that has followed each of you through your life in a way you can't ignore? If you can think of any.
So tough.
One that was like the most profound for you, or still touches you the most today, or something. I don't know.
For me, maybe the labyrinth. It's just been bugging me for a really long time in dreams and in, experiences. Right?
No, silly question, but is that like the labyrinth that you would see like on a medieval cathedral floor?
Yeah. Yeah, the
Oh,
maze.
okay, all right. Oh, okay, all right. I wasn't
Mhm.
all right. It's funny because I was just like literally recording that. I'm recording on stuff on that myself.
Oh,
when you
cool.
said that, I was just like, what?
That's so funny. Yeah, it's
I literally
really
edited
rich.
myself this morning hearing me talk about that shit.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Cool synchronicity.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
was it Kaiva? I think you were talking about Labyrinth not too long. Weren't you just bringing up Labyrinths the other day?
Yeah, I have always been interested in them, and I just got a book because I have this inspiration for some project that I want to do. So, yeah, I love labyrinths. Actually, Corona Borealis was the first like star that led me into my night gazing journey, and so I have a really special connection with that star, and that's the star that's on the crown. That's in the labyrinth itself. So,
Yeah.
I was actually Christine, you would like this. I'm reading a book right now called Matrix, I think it's called. Forget the author. It's a novel, and it's a novel that's basically just based off of Hildegard of Bingen.
Oh,
But
awesome.
it's like it's not her, but it's like someone who's like her, and she like is this like feminist abbess, and she basically built a labyrinth around the abbey because she doesn't want any men entering it.
Yo, she was a gangster, that lady.
Well, this is not Hildegard didn't actually do that, but this woman in the book does it, and Hildegard would have. Yeah, she would have if she could have. So you might like that book, Christina, since it's labyrinth.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yo,
it's good.
she booked at the church, and I forgot what it was. I think like they wanted to tell like you're not allowed to sing anymore, and she's like, no. And I think she actually went up higher.
She wrote letters to popes being like, "You're awful. You are not a good Christian. How dare you?" And she's just like this little German abbess.
You know, she came up with harmonizing.
Yeah, she had a huge influence in polyphonic music. Yeah.
We never would have had Iron Maiden. That's all they did. That's all they did. They always harmonized. I'm sorry. That's just my mind.
That's good. That's good. You're really showing your age there, Nick. Really showing your age.
All right, last one. What do you? Oh, wait. Did you ever get Mariana? Did you mention a symbol?
Yeah. What's your symbol?
I don't know. It's hard. I think that a big one for me is angels. They always have haunted me. My mom was obsessed with them when I was a kid, and I used to just everything was angels for me, and like talking to angels and thinking about angels and angels appearing and all sorts of stuff. So it's followed me, and it's not always been a good thing. So I have a unique. What is it? It's like Rilke has a line. Is like every angel is terrifying. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Oh, if you read the descriptions of them, they really aren't the cutest.
Yeah.
All right. So it's kind of a little bit of a serious one. What do you both hope Soror Mystica is really doing for people? Like, or what do you hope they really get out of this?
Yeah. I think for me, I hope that people feel like their own curiosities and their own sense of things being enchanting or mystical or meaningful is validated, and that they're hearing other people have the same experience and feeling motivated to claim it. As we've said many times, in this discussion, there's such a flattening of life, and oftentimes we're like the little occultist or witch or spiritual person or whatever in a circle of muggles, normies, right? Who are like, why do you care about that? I remember when I was an actor before I, transitioned into tarot and stuff, I used to have my young book always in my rehearsals and between my scenes, and people would be like, why are you reading that? I'm like, if I have to explain that to you, I don't want to talk to you because it's important, because it's cool, because there's 10,000 reasons why I'm reading that. And I think that it's very easy to be isolated in our beliefs and these interests. And so I hope that people hear us having these discussions and realize that these discussions matter, and that they can have them, and they can seek out communities where they're available all the time. So that's it for me.
That is awesome. Thank you. And Cristina.
Yeah, I agree, obviously, with everything she's saying. And then, I think specifically for me, I hope that people listen to the show and realize that there is a deep, rich context for the symbolism of our lives. And I think it's especially important in a time where, as we've said, things are flattened, compressed, stripped of meaning. Reading rates are declining, like, whatever screen time, attention issues are happening. Kids aren't reading books. I think that we're kind of like, guardians of that tradition of reminding people of how deep history is and how these symbols are like part of the language that we're supposed to be speaking.
Yeah.
I think that the symbolism or the symbolic realm like returns us to something really essential. And so, like, is knowing symbolism going to make you $1 million? Hell no. Is it going to make you feel like a human and make you feel connected to yourself, to nature, to your partners, to your art practice, to your ancestral lineages? Yes. And that's really, really important. So that's kind of, I think, the biggest thing for me with the ongoing conversation.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, right. Yeah. And how many episodes do you have out now?
Was it 50 that we paused? We
That's right.
took a hiatus, and so I think we paused at 50. But
yeah. I was pregnant. Now I'm not. So, which means I had my child.
The baby.
The baby was born.
Awesome.
So yeah, we'll be back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. Yeah. So, like I said earlier to the people listening, for the people on audio who are watching right now, I really do highly suggest to go listen to that podcast if you're into this show. So they got 50 episodes you can go binge. So go check them out. All right. Thank you both very, very much. I really thought this was an awesome episode. I had a feeling it would be, and it was better than I thought. So I really appreciate both you women. Before we wrap it up, I'm going to have everybody just plug themselves real quick. Kaiva, what is up? How are you?
Yeah, this was a really lovely chat. Thank you for coming on, and thanks for having me on, Nick. So you can find me at Kaiva Rose on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can go to my website, 11kaivarose33.com. Also, if you like fantasy novels, I have a young adult fantasy series called Rue Odyssey, and you can find that at Rue Odyssey, ROU, odyssey.com. Thank you.
Thank you. So cool. Thank you very much. And Brandon, sir, wrap it up.
Sup, let's do it. Thank you, ladies. This was fantastic. It's always wonderful to also be able to speak to those who also seem to have a tap into authenticity and honesty in a sphere which is full of grifters. And so that's fantastic. So thank you. I look forward to hearing more from you both. And Kaiva, as always, you're brilliant. And everyone should go out and read her Rue Odyssey trilogy. The third one is being written as we speak. Even though she's right here, she's writing it as we speak. It's amazing, and I think everyone should read it. She's a fantastic traditional astrologer, and I think she's one of the best there is. Anyway, everyone go out and check out Magus in the Media. Subscribe, like, and share. Again, the world is getting darker, and it's always darkest before the dawn, and that means that Renaissance, I truly believe, is on the precipice. Channels like the Occult Rejects, Magus in the Media, and the like, we're all here to help illuminate the shadows in the dark. So just go check out all the stuff. Life's great. Thanks, Nick, as always. We crush.
Of course, yes, we do. Thank you, sir. That was amazing. Love it. Ladies, Mariana, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on again. It was so fun. I loved it. Great time. And you can find me at persephonessister.com. Persephone Sister pretty much anywhere. Instagram, Substack, YouTube, all those places. And check out my book, Tarot and the Psychology of the Soul, which is out now. And if you want to learn more about archetypal tarot, then my upcoming class, I have a beginner's class available too as well, and then a little bit more of an intermediate class, the Archetypal Tarot School. So all of that's available wherever you find me. You'll see information about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Cristina, please.
Thanks, everyone. Lovely to be here, meet new people, and just have this conversation. My stuff again, I don't know, CristinaFarella.com is my website. You can find me at 8th House Astro on Instagram, TikTok. I'm on Substack. And my class, the School of Astrological Arcana, opens late April, and my book, Divination for Dummies, is out April 28th. So those are the things. And I appreciate the time and space.
That's right. Awesome. I forgot about that book. I have to remember that. I'm going to hit you up for that, Cristina.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Again, thank you both. I really thought this was an awesome chat. I really had a great time, and I could tell. I mean, the people in the chat loved it as well. So I really appreciate it from both of you, and Kaiva and Brandon. Amazing stuff. And thank you everybody in the chat. And Howard, thank you again, my man. I'm gonna have to end up like sending you a toe or something at this point. You're fucking my firstborn. I don't think that's ever happened. This guy sent me so much freaking money. Thank you, Howard.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. Thank you, Howard.
But that's I guess that's why I go live now too. But besides everybody coming in the chat and giving the questions or whatever or comments, that's why I go live. I love it. I like everybody adding to it as well. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well.